Social media today, if you're not doing that, oh, you're way out. You're far behind. Because I know that's where people go, and that's where you get your message out, and that's where you can really make an impact. And by 12 o'clock, man, the only thing left around here is the cockroaches. That's not America. Why are we not flying in on Sunday night, go to work at 7 in the morning on Monday morning or 8 in the morning on Monday morning, and work up until 6, 7 o'clock at night, all the way through till Friday? Speaker Johnson laid it out in his letter to us. You know, we're going to run through these appropriation bills, lay out an ironclad schedule. If we don't get it done by August, you stay here.
It's Friday. Welcome to the Sean Spicer Show. Sit back, relax. We've got a lot coming your way, easing into the weekend, or if you're catching up with us over the weekend, don't worry. We're going to give you a little bit of time to enjoy this because I want to talk about something a little different. As I said a minute ago, this week we covered the speaker's race extensively. We talked about what was going on in Israel. We talked about the 2024 race and where things stood. But at the end of the day, we've got to figure out how we're getting our message out, how we're talking about what we're for, what they're against. I mentioned an op-ed I wrote for The Hill about how Virginia Republicans are frankly on defense. They're talking about their position on 15-week abortion and supposed to being on offense. That's one example, but I think there's a bigger issue at stake here. The methods and the means of what we do. Republicans are used to calling press conferences and hoping that the media carries their message. And yes, I'm proud to now be part of the independent media. They don't have to worry about the networks and the corporations and all of the leftists that are involved in that. But even with me, you have to come on my show, which I'm glad so many people do. But there are influencers out there, and I'm going to give you some examples in just a minute to talk to you about how this is all happening. And I think that that's important to understand because we're not taking advantage as a party of everything that is happening. And so I'm going to give you some examples and talk to you about this because when I was in the Trump White House and even when I was at the RNC, we were very big into using traditional means. Like we had at the Trump White House radio days, and we would invite local media to come in and set up, and we would have a series of interviews with them, bring in the cabinet officials, the key White House staff, and they would go around to different, we'd set up a row, and these guys could come in and they would broadcast from there, and we would give them interviews. And that was great. That's a very smart way. But what the Biden administration and what the Biden campaign are doing are totally different. I mean, one of the things I did when I was in the White House, and it drove the media nuts, is I brought in via Skype reporters who couldn't be there. I write about this in my first book, The Briefing, because what had happened was the White House briefing room is 49 seats. The first couple rows are the traditional media, the ABCs, the Associated Press, the NBCs, the Washington Post, New York Times. And I would like to put it, they infect the briefing. When I took over as White House press secretary, so the tradition is you call on the AP first, and then you kind of go up and down the first row, meaning that all of the legacy media get to decide the narrative first, and then you call the back of the room, the people who are just there visiting, maybe not the bigger outlets. And when I got to be press secretary, I said, nope, that's done. I'm not going to start with the AP. I ended up calling on the New York Post first. And I worked from the back of the room up front. And then I started to bring in radio hosts and other people via Skype because they weren't hearing issues that matter to them. Okay, well, fast forward, the Biden White House is building what they call an army of influencers. These are people that are online. They're on TikTok. They're on Instagram. They're on Snapchat. They're on Twitter. Or X. They've got huge followings. People who watch, think about what we're doing here, the number of people that watch other shows on podcasts or YouTube or Rumble that are cut from the cord. I brought this up before. 32% of Americans have cable or satellite. That's it. 68% of American families and households have cut the cord. They're not getting information from cable news anymore, from network news. They're getting it from places like here, but they're also getting it from Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, as I said, especially a lot of the younger folks. And the Biden administration has really embraced this when it comes to their agenda. They're inviting these folks in. They did it, especially if you remember during COVID, they had the Jonas Brothers in and all these different folks to talk about issues that were of concern to them. Younger demographics are huge. You think about this just for a second. Young voters, 18 to 29, preferred Biden over Trump by a 26-point margin in 2020, and Democrats over Republicans by 28 points in 2022. Think about that for a minute, right? That's 28 points that we're yielding. And I get maybe the 18 to 21, but that demographic is 18 to 29. These are people in the workforce that are seeing the effects of Bidenomics. They are people who maybe wanted to buy a first house that now can't because 8% interest rates are putting it out of the realm of possibility. We have an opportunity to get to these folks in a way that we haven't before. They're not watching and they're not looking at the Washington Post and the New York Times. They're not listening to ABC and CNN and Fox News even. They're listening to channels like this, hopefully. They are going to their favorite followers on Instagram and TikTok. So why can't we start reaching out to this? Why can't the different entities, the House Republican Conference, start embracing them, right? When we ran the convention, and I was at the RNC, I wasn't at the convention, but we had a relationship, and I'd ask them, how many bloggers back in 2012, how many folks in the new media and the social media are we inviting? Well, they set aside like 10 or 15 seats. Well, think about it. Would we rather have 5 people from CNN or 5 people on the right that have huge followings that everybody's watching? I mean, that seems like it makes a heck of a lot more sense to me than it does trying to figure out how many more seats CNN can come in and babble off. When I've talked about these debates in the past, that's kind of the point that I've been making, right? Why are we relying on NBC News and CNN? That's where we're going, just to be clear. Why aren't we embracing networks that that have huge followers, have their individuals, the Ben Shapiro's, the Charlie Kirks? Think about how many people they're reaching. Charlie Kirk is on the campuses of so many colleges and universities, but then he puts his messages out on all these social channels. Why not invite him in? Have a thing with him, have an opportunity to share content, to share policy ideas. You know how many people are watching him that never will watch a network program? A lot. And it's not just that young demographic. You talk to more and more people who are in their mid-30s or 40s. I mean, think about how many people have cut the cord and they're only streaming information. They're watching shows that we can provide information and content and ideas and policies to that aren't getting it now. And we're going to talk to Congressman Mike Collins from Georgia. He's a businessman. He owned a trucking company. But he understands that you got to go where people are. You can't just have a press conference and do this. He was memeing all week. He'd put out a picture of something funny. He took his business card at one point. We'll put this up. And he crossed out member of Congress, but memer of Congress. But he was putting out funny things and people would respond to him because it was funny and it was viral and it wasn't all just trying to jam HR 4262 down your throat with a bunch of policy. He mixed it in. He has this list, and we'll talk to him about it, that he put out if you ran for speaker. It was funny. And that's the point, is that it mixed serious content in with stuff that people could laugh at. And everybody started to tweet it and follow. And he's a freshman. He just got to Congress. He just got to Washington. And yet people are looking at him. Not because he was the most senior person, but because he put content out there that people could embrace. And I think that's the point here, is that we've got to up the game and not just put out press releases and say, I hope that the Washington Post picks this up and then people read it. The media is a means to you. It is a distribution, right? You're hoping when you put out a press release or hold a press conference or whatever. But think about what Trump did. He embraced Twitter, now X and Truth Social. He just jams his message out there. He doesn't hold a press conference every time. Puts it out. Everybody covers it. They share it. Well, it works. And that's the point. We can reach the voters directly without having to go through the mainstream media and let them be the filter of what we want. They don't get to say, this is what they meant. It's like, boom, you can read it right there on Truth Social. And again, I think about this. When Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General, was getting recalled, he used this army of MAGA influencers to fight back. And he was right. When we thought about the Sound of Freedom movie, why do you think that was so successful? People like Jack Pacific tweeted about it, pushed it out there, and people went and saw it. They didn't have a huge Hollywood budget. That's why. So let's embrace this. Let's use this tactic. And I'm excited to talk to Congressman Mike Collins, who is the perfect example of it. Folks, Halloween is upon us. And this weekend, you may stop and say, well, let's watch Halloween. Let's watch Nightmare on Elm Street. But when you go to your Netflix account to look for it, where is it? You won't find it because your computer, your Netflix is attached to the United States, as you would probably think it is. But guess what? This is what I've learned through ExpressVPN. You download ExpressVPN on your computer, your tablet, your TV, and you can trick your computer into saying that you're now in Canada or Australia or Germany or 100 different places. And why does that matter? Because guess what I've learned? Netflix has a separate set of movies for each country. So you can't get Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street in the US, but guess what? You can if you change the country. You can just trick it. It's amazing. You get thousands of extra shows by using ExpressVPN. And I've now downloaded it, and you realize you can save $50, $100 because you can tell Netflix, I'm in Germany, I'm in Australia, I'm in Canada. Think about this. How much you'd have to go subscribe to Amazon, Prime, all these other places if you didn't do that. And I think it's amazing. You go into your computer right here. Think about it. If you're in Australia, you can get all of the Lord of the Rings movies. If you tell your computer through ExpressVPN you're in Germany, you can get all the Top Gun. You can get Top Gun. Parasite is in Korea. That's amazing. ExpressVPN, though, the beautiful thing is it works on everything. I mean, we're talking phones, tablets, you name it. And it's not just Netflix. You could do BBC Player, all the things you want. So you want to go to expressvpn.com/Spicer, expressvpn/Spicer. You get 3 months free. Try it for yourself. If you want to get ready for Halloween, that's what you need to do to make sure you can watch it this weekend. I'm excited to introduce you to Congressman Mike Collins. If you don't know him already online, he became a viral sensation and hit, or at least his X account did. His comms director was away over the course of a lot of this voting. He's from Georgia's 10th district. He's in his first term, and yet he's a big standout because of how he's embraced the use of social media. His memes went viral day in and day out. People were looking for him. I'm excited to have this conversation with him. Without further ado, Mike Collins. Congressman, good to see you. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing fine, Sean. Everything's going good here.
I know. So let me ask you the big question I think is on everybody's mind. Are you going to keep memeing now that there is a new speaker?
Yeah, of course we are, And the thing is, we've always memed. We've just kind of caught a little ride here, a little wave, and, it's taken off pretty good bit. So, but that's just been kind of the culture of our office, But if you ever came in over here.
But that's the thing that's so interesting is I want to get to that. Like, was this something that you've always done and it just got noticed?
Well, yeah, it's something that our whole staff has done. I mean, that's what I was getting. If you come into our office in the back there, I mean, there's a wall that's got memes on there where everybody pokes fun at everybody around here.
All right, so that's an invitation. I should come by.
You should come by. Yeah, it's got a list up there of different memes. But so we've always kind of had a.
Is that you? Is that always been you? You're the jokester. You're the funny guy.
A lot of the things are things that I say, and our staff it's amazing how much they listen. I didn't know they listened to me that much, but they'll grab something, and twist it around or put it in there and make it a little funnier, or just put up what I say. Yeah. And then sometimes, I'm kind of like Beals. I get a little help from my friends, with this staff around here. They're always thinking outside the box too.
So it's interesting. I know your dad. I didn't know him well, but I knew your dad when I was a staffer on the Hill. Kind of much more of probably a traditional Georgia politician, right? When you ran, was this something that you embraced? This idea of digital media, the newness of this, Because before, it was all about raising money. Then you put an ad up and you shake a bunch of hands. Is this something that you've evolved into, or did you, when you were running, you said, hey, let's embrace the new media, the social media?
Yeah, Sean, in my entire private life, I've always said that you have to be the most technologically advanced, the cutting edge on whatever you're doing. And in the trucking industry, that was no different. We always try to buy the best trucks, the most technologically advanced, just so that our people have the best tools to do the job. And when we got into this race this time around, that's one of the things that Brandon, my chief of staff, now, he was my general consultant then, we talked about, we've got to use every form of media out there. And these younger people, they know that. And I've often found that so funny that we'll be sitting somewhere in a GOP meeting or somewhere with people my age, and they're like, oh, you got to put your head down and go to work. You don't need to be on social media. Well, not me, brother, because I know that's where people go, and that's where you get your message out, and that's where you can really make an impact on whether you're running for something or whether you're just trying to get your message out.
It's funny you say that. I've always explained to press secretaries and communications folks throughout my career that the media is just a means to get your message out. So you're having a press conference so that a reporter writes a story so that people read it. But if you can develop an email list or a social media following that gets it directly to the people, then you've just cut out the media and you've able to directly communicate. Do you think that enough Republicans understand that?
No, I don't. And actually, Sean, I think that's something that my dad instilled in me. Because even though back then, it was all print or on TV or radio. And he used to say he didn't care what they said, as long as they spell my name right. As long as you spell my name right, then I'm good, because you're going to get media off them. People are going to remember that. A lot of times now, they really don't remember a lot of what you say, but they remember how you say it or how you present it.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what we do here, especially with these memes. It just things trigger, like the Bart Simpson one. That triggers people my age.
Right.
And they remember those types of things. Or when you see the Seinfeld, that's just people from us and the 80s decade. So it's the social media today. If you're not doing that, oh, you're way out. You're far behind.
All right, guys, most of us know what it's like to be without power, sometimes for an hour, maybe a day, a couple days after a natural disaster, a hurricane, a windstorm, whatever. But now national security experts are warning that our power grid is more vulnerable than ever. And they've identified 9 key substations, which, if attacked, they're saying we could lose power for months. That's why having your own solar power is more important than ever. So I recommend the Patriot Power Generator, which is a solar generator that you don't have to install in your house. It's portable. You can take it with you. You can use it inside your house. And it's powerful enough that if power goes out, we're talking your phones, your tablets, your computers, medical devices, even your refrigerator gets power. So if you go to 4patriots.com and use code SPICER, you get 10% off your first purchase. It's 4patriots.com, includes that Patriot Power Generator. You'll get that guarantee for a year, free shipping if it's over $97, and a portion of every sale is donated to charities that support veterans, right? That's great. So go to 4patriots.com, use code SPICER, 4patriots.com. You do not want to be without power in case something happens. So when you were doing this during the speaker's race, what was the reaction from your colleagues? Because everybody, it was funny. Let me take it back a step. When you started doing this, you're a newer member of Congress. And suddenly I see your name everywhere. You're on podcasts, you're on television, journalists are retweeting you. Was this something that you were trying to do, or were you just sort of like, hey, I'm going to have fun doing something funny?
We started out as funny, and truthfully, a lot of it evolved within the last week and a half because my comms director really did get married.
I know.
And so, so she took off the week before she got married, and it just kind of turned everybody loose, and we had a little time on our hands. It was idle. And so we just started throwing out a few things, and it just kept snowballing. People meet you going down the hall, especially people, in your party, and they were like, man, we love what you're doing. And it just kind of, things gained traction then. And it began. Our office is so freaking competitive anyway. we all want to one up each other. So then you start getting people call, hey man, this is my thought. It's like,
Right.
okay, get in the queue line or something.
So before that gets overlooked, look, I was a comms
Yeah.
director on the House side. It's usually a one-man band. Like you're the comm director,
Yeah.
maybe someone's helping out. She goes off to get married and she says, boss, you good? You going to cover this? You're like, yep.
Yeah.
You've got to think did she text you or text your staff while she's away and like, what is going on?
Oh yeah. She was staying in contact. I mean, she never really left DC, so she was always around,
I know, but
she just didn't come into the office.
I took like a day off, and what are you guys doing on Twitter?
Yeah, it was kind of that. And we've got, she's got somebody that helps her here. So between Jimmy and Brandon and Andrew and Kevin, I mean, it just the whole staff around here just starts playing around, and then it really gets out of control.
So as we head into the 2024 campaign, the Biden administration, or the Biden campaign rather, has sort of made it clear that they embrace this. Joe Biden may not fully understand it, but they're going to go out there and use these influencers. They're bringing them to the White House.
Yeah.
Are we doing enough on the right? I mean, this is a variation of the question I asked before, to embrace influencers, because we still look at this like press conferences and invite the media and have space for the media, as opposed to maybe thinking, how do we embrace influencers?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that's something that GOP needs to look inside and see. And that the people that I talk to, in our circles, especially since we've been involved in social media quite a bit, now we know those influencers. We talk to them, and we try to get on their little podcast, or we go to their events and just be involved. But you're right. I liken this so much to my time being in the private sector even when my parents were in trucking. I'll never forget, I walked into the dispatch office one time and I said, well, have you talked to so-and-so about needing anything hauled? Oh, no. If they need something, they'll call me. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, man. That's not how you look at it now. Right. It's totally different. You've got to get out there and get engaged, and you've got to push. You've got to start pressing to get your message, or in that case, get your trucks used. So it's no different. And I think that so many times you're right. We just call a press conference and we show up and hope that the media shows up. Now, I would like to say that maybe I'm dead wrong on that.
No, you're not.
But I just think that we need to really take an internal look on what we do and make sure that we are doing everything we can with today's media outlets.
Yeah. Have you ever missed the mark? If you put one of these out and everyone's like, I don't think that's going to go over the way you thought it would.
Well, now you're going to jinx me, but not yet.
Okay. I usually, my wife is the first one to text me afterwards, like, this isn't funny. And I'm like, yes, it is. Cause and she's like, no one gets the joke. So,
I will say one of them. I don't know if you looked at my platform when I was.
Oh no, we're
going
to get to that. Let's hold that for a second, because I want to get to it. Okay, well, if that's the worst you got, then you're doing pretty well. But before I leave this, just real quick, to go back to what I was asking, what do we need to do as a conference, as a party, as a movement, to sort of match what the Dems are doing? Because they've got this army of influencers.
Yeah. We always look at a hierarchy whenever we're looking at it. Take speaker, whatever it is, majority leader, it doesn't matter. And we kind of move up that ladder. You know how Republicans are. Yep. Well, if you were this, then the next one's this. And I think sometimes we overlook what's right there in front of you, and it's these young people. And we've got a great group of young Republicans that are eager to help, and they've got great ideas. We just need to engage them and see what they are. And they're not always going to work, but that's okay. It's trying to do different things to get better results. And I, anytime we can engage in it, and that's I've always tried to surround myself with people that I always figure a whole lot smarter than me, and especially this younger crowd. I mean, they grew up with these things. I didn't grow up with cell phones. I didn't grow up with any of that stuff. And but I do know that is the key to getting your message out and the key to winning.
All right, folks, it's the weekend. You probably want to relax, but don't just chill. You still want to get up and go. Boom. You know how I do it? You guessed it, with Morning Kick. I looked at a guy like Chuck Norris. The guy is in amazing shape for 83 years old. He doesn't look close to that, does he? I know. But he's been a health and fitness guru his whole life. And he has experimented with supplements all throughout that time. He's finally come and created a formula of the 10 supplements that get things done for him, and he knows we'll get things done for us as well. Probiotics, prebiotics, superfoods, you name it. He puts it all into one amazing drink. It's strawberry lemonade. It tastes amazing. You've heard me talk about this before. It helps with digestion, mental clarity, and all of the other things that you need to get going. It gives you that extra boost. You can go to mymorningkick.com/Spicer and try it for yourself. mymorningkick/Spicer and try it for yourself. But you will not be disappointed. It is amazing. I love to start my day with it, and I think you will too. It's amazing. I'll have conversations with people. Like we were literally talking. You may have heard I was on Dancing with the Stars, but I was joking about this season. What's his name? Barry Williams is on. He was Greg Brady. And every once in a while, I was like, "Oh my gosh, Greg Brady's on Dancing with the Stars," and they'll be like, "Who's Greg Brady?" I'm like, the Brady Bunch, and they're like, "No." But then you'll mention some woman that's got 10,000, 1 million followers on TikTok, and they're like, "Oh, you don't know her?" So it's amazing how the generation's breaking down in terms of who we know from TV versus who we know on social media. But I think you're absolutely right. We're missing, I think, a chunk of people that only know people because they've done very well on social media platforms.
Yep. Yeah.
So let's get into this platform. I thought it was hysterical. You put out this thing. Let me just read it to the folks, and we'll put it up on screen. You wrote that if you were running for speaker, this is, the House must work longer than the UAW, the United Auto Workers, who in their agreement cut back from 40 hours to 32. That wouldn't be that tough. All 12 appropriations bills before August or no recess. I think that's a serious one, and we should do that. Carmine's for dinner every conference. I'm going to let you break some of these down in a second, what they mean. But past term limits, press releases out, memes are in. We're talking about that. Wider parking to fit 18 wheels. I assume that's a reference to your business as a trucker. No omnibus, minibus, or short buses. I thought that could have gotten you in trouble. No more money to Ukraine till southern border is secured. You're mixing in the serious with the funny. A chicken in every pot. That goes back. I bet you half of the people don't get that one. No more having to listen to Frank Luntz at retreat, and no secret side deals. All right. So walk me through how you came up with the platform.
Well, I mean, since we've been up here in January, it's always amazed me. And the fact that we come in, and you probably have seen this has probably gone on forever, but we get here like on Monday afternoon, and then we have a suspension vote at 6:30 at night to name a post office. And then you work Tuesday, Wednesday, and So and then Thursday morning you do some votes, and by 12 o'clock, man, the only thing left around here is the cockroaches. And I just always said, that's not America. Why are we not flying in on Sunday night, go to work at 7 in the morning on Monday morning or 8 in the morning on Monday morning, and work up until 6, 7 o'clock at night, all the way through till Friday? It just didn't make any sense, because it seems like the longer the weeks go by, the less we get done, especially if you have a hang up and not your whole conference is not in agreement. So that was, there was a jab at UAW in a way, but it's just the same thing that we've always been saying, and of course the 12 approach bills. I think my staff around here has heard me say it enough, man. I really almost quit grade school because my teacher wanted me to take a recess, and we don't believe in recesses. We just work. But we definitely, and I'm proud to say that Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House, has taken that same approach, that we will not go to August recess if we don't have those appropriation bills done. It's almost embarrassing. In my opinion,
I had one of your colleagues on, and I agree with you. Why are you taking August off and then coming back and being like, okay, you have to pass this? I mean, you've jammed you guys, and it's a problem of your own making.
Yeah, it is. And then, of course, I've always preached on term limits. And actually, when we started looking at people running for speaker, You know, I think that's so important now. When you look at our conference is about almost 70% of it. They've gotten here since 2016. I mean, you know, so we're America first. And a lot of these, and there's nothing wrong with them, great people, but I just think that we need to really start looking at fresh new ideas, different approaches. And so I think term limits help in that. And I've always said that that's something. And, you know, on the 18 wheels, yeah, I think that was the one that a lot of people, they don't know me. So they're like, what do you mean 18 wheels? You know, maybe I should have put a 10-4 good buddy out beside it or something like that. I don't even know if people understand CB talk anymore, but that is a reference to our trucking company.
All right. I don't really know CB talk. I just know like breaker 1-4 or whatever, but I don't even know which channel I'm coming in on. I will tell you a funny personal story. We were driving one time and I made a joke. I said breaker 19 or whatever. And this dude on the CB, because we had one in the car, we were taking a fun trip. The guy goes, "You're on whatever 2-1, dummy." Like, I just thought you said breaker 19, no matter what. Like, no, that means because you're on channel 19. You were on channel 41.
That's right.
What's the Carmines and the Frank Luntz thing? Tell me what those two are before I let you.
Well, we keep getting sandwiches every night, you know, and so we walked in. It's probably been 4 or 5 days ago, and they had Carmines, and I was like, "Ooh,
Italian, right?"
Yeah, Italian. You know, it's chicken parm, and I'm like, "Dude, man, that's the platform there, man. We're going to offer chicken. We're going to have Carmines every night." And so that had to go into the platform, you know. And the funny thing is, last night we had Carmines.
So let me ask you this. I know your time is tough. Let me just ask you, all joking aside, you got this new speaker. What's the plan to kind of, and I know this is new still, but what is the plan? Are we going to have another CR? How soon can we see some of these reforms, serious and not, that you laid out?
Well, you know, Sean, look, we had a lot of the appropriation bills teed up already. When the motion to vacate, we finally had a schedule. It's God, I've been begging for this schedule for so long. And so we had a schedule. We were going to put out the approach bills here. You saw us. We voted on the first 4, and then we had the next ones teed up. If we hadn't vacated the chair, we'd be about 90% through with the appropriations right now. So what we got to do is, and Speaker Johnson laid it out in his letter to us. You know, we're going to run through these appropriation bills, kick them out over there. They're figuring that whatever's left, we'll have to do a CR on them for a short period of time. They may be thinking up till April. If you do it till April, that means that the 1% will automatically kick in at the end of the year, since that was what that was in the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Right. So that's the plan. Then going forward next year, yes, lay out an ironclad schedule and say this is when the budget's going to be drawn up. And that gives you your top line. Your appropriators know what to appropriate to. Get those done. If we don't get it done by August, tough. You stay here. I like that approach. I really like the way. I love what Speaker Johnson had to say when he took the gavel this afternoon. I think he's going to be a great speaker, and I am looking forward to trying to get more into helping this conference as it goes forward.
Well, good. I think we need you as a communicator. Listen, Mike Johnson may have been elected Speaker of the House, but I am all for Mike Collins being the memer of the House. Congressman, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Hey, I appreciate your time, Sean. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Mike Collins, because that is what we need more of. We need to embrace the new tools that we have at our disposal to win the next campaign, to win the next election. Biden is 80. We watch him fall downstairs. We watch him not complete a sentence. But his team understands that it's not about him. They can utilize this army of influences that they talk about and get a message out that's not about him. In the past, it would have had to be him. Think about this. He used a basement strategy before. So I hope that we do this. Before we end up the week, though, I do want to talk a little bit about the new speaker, Mike Johnson. We watched and covered all of the different folks that went before him. I think a lot of things went into his success. But most of all, it was his demeanor and how he handled himself. If you listen to him, if you listen to the speech or seen the clips, he was very stoic. He has a plan. He's respectful of other people, and he laid out how he was going to do this. And I think he talks about things that were simple, but he listened to what the frustrations were for these folks. Let me read you. It wasn't just what he said. We had Dan Muser on. Remember? He was initially a candidate. He dropped out, and he kind of had 6 things. What I loved about Mike Johnson's plan is it wasn't just what he put out. He put it out in a calendar form. He showed people that he had thought about this very methodically and logically. It wasn't just that I'm going to say this thing. I'm going to show you how I'm going to implement it. So he says October, November. Pass Chairman McCall's resolution condemning Hamas, number 1. Number 2, reach consensus for a legislative blueprint through the end of the 118th Congress. That's January. So he's basically saying in October and November, I want to make sure that we think about these last 3 months. What can we get done? Pass all appropriations bill and begin negotiating with the White House and the Senate. Okay. Again, not rocket scientist, but he lays this thing out. Begin conference negotiations with the Senate on the FY24 NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. He's basically saying, hey, this is number 4 on my priority list. Number 5, begin negotiations on the FAA Reauthorization Act as soon as the Senate passes. Now, unlike spending bills that have to originate in the House, these can go over. That start in the Senate, it'll come over. This is the FAA. This is what allows the planes to make sure that they're flying and that all of the airline industry is regulated. It needs to be reauthorized. It's expiring. He gets it. He laid it out for us. And then we need to return to legislating and effectively messaging on our top issues and priority. This is what I'm talking about. But he recognizes this right off the top and says, these are my top 6 priorities for the October-November timeframe. And then in December, he says, continue negotiating FY24 appropriations because he recognizes we're going to have a continuing resolution. It's going to happen. They all said the same thing, by the way. Scalise, Jordan, whatever. But he's being upfront. He's being honest about it. There's no wondering where he stands on this. Then he says, pass the conference report for the NDAA. Okay, so because he talked about what we're going to do in October and November, this will work, right? So that makes sense. And then the last thing is pass the Farm Bill and await Senate action, begin negotiating as possible. Again, Farm Bill needs to be reauthorized. And for those people out in the Midwest in particular, this is crucial. Although I would hearken to say that even in the Wisconsin, Michigan, the impact that has on dairy in particular is going to be huge. January and April, continue negotiating FY24 to secure conservative wins for the American people. 2, build conference consensus regarding budget levels for 2025 and pass a budget resolution. You see that? He's moving that up, making sure that he has heard that message that we need to get these things done earlier. I brought it up with Mike Collins. You heard that discussion. We need to get ahead of this so we're not getting jammed at the end with a continuing resolution, with omnibus bills, with continuing resolutions. If we can get ahead of this on the Republican side, we're not going to get jammed again. Then he goes into May, July, complete House consideration of FY25 bills. Crazy, right? Here we are in his plan saying May, July. We're going to get this thing done so that we're not waiting till September when there's no time left and getting forced by the Senate or the White House. He's saying, guess what? We're going to flip this and screw them. We're going to jam them on those bills. Complete House consideration of the Water Resources Defense Act. It's called WRDA in DC speak. But that's, again, up for reauthorization, and complete House consideration of the FY25 NDA. Again, getting ahead of the National Defense Authorization Bill. But this is the point. Number 1, under August, here's the key thing. Do not break for district work period unless all 12 appropriation bills have passed the House. He got the message. He's laying this out in a calendar for everybody to see. I mean, I get that's the key thing here. He got it. Right? And then he continues. September, wrap up all negotiations with the White House and Senate on NDA and WRDA. October, December, expand our majority, complete outstanding issues here. The thing that's so interesting to me is that what I'm seeing here is not just a bunch of tactics. It's actually the strategy. And remember when I was talking about that with respect to the speaker's race, people were blowing things up and then not having a plan. This is a plan. This tells us what he will get done. And I think that that's important. He's not just saying, hey guys, here's what we need to do, whatever. He has actually thought it through. And in my opinion, that's what we need to be doing, is not just randomly throwing out tactics, but thinking about how to sequence them, how to get to those wins that he's talking about at the end. How do you expand a majority? Well, it's having a message and selling it to the American people and saying, if you would trust us with a majority, we're going to actually get things done. We're going to make government more efficient. We're going to reduce the size of government. We're going to go after, get things done that make a difference in your life. If you think about it, I mentioned this op-ed that I wrote in The Hill about why Virginia elections are so important. Because what happens in Virginia is usually a test case. The Democrats and the Republicans both run messages and try to see what worked. It's sort of the minor league of elections. Before the big midterm, and in this case, it's going to be the big presidential elections, the Dems are making it clear. It's all about painting Republicans as MAGA extremists that want to take away your right to choose. Oh, they've gone all in on abortion. That's where they are. And so they know what they're for. What are we going to be for? What are we test driving? What are we saying this is what we can do? That's what I want. And that's what Mike Johnson gave us, is a plan. He laid it out. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. Boom. Let's go execute it. This is what we've been waiting for. So for all those bedwetters in the media that wondered, oh, what's going to happen? It took too long. Yes, it was messy. Yes, it took a little longer than even I wanted. I'll admit that. But we got the job done, and I think we got the right guy. These guys are all worried about whether or not he's served as this or that. You know what? Donald Trump hadn't served as anything either. Remember that guy? And look at what he got done, because he wasn't willing to just take how we used to do things as a way of governing. He said, I don't care anymore. We're going to do what we have to do. I told this story early on in the White House, that when we first got in, there was an executive order to restart the Keystone and XL pipelines. And they brought him the executive order and they said, Mr. President, here you go, sign it. And he's reading through it and he says, wait a second, it doesn't say anything about using U.S. steel. Oh, well, Mr. President, this and that, and we couldn't do that. And he says, well, then why am I doing this? I said, well, we've already got people here. We're ready to go. And he said, then go back. We'll tell them to wait. Go back and fix it. Rewrite it, but I want to make sure that we're doing this right the first time. I didn't do all this to just put out an executive order that doesn't impact. I want to make sure that we're maximizing the use of U.S. steel. So they went back and they did it. But that's the difference. Most people, I think, would have said, okay, fine, we'll fix it later. That wasn't Trump's way. And hopefully this isn't going to be, this is how Mike Johnson, he's like, hey, I don't care that this is the system. I'm willing to go in and make the reforms necessary by putting a plan together, showing you how it's going to happen, and executing on it. And I know that we're all worried about these people in the media, but this goes back to what I was saying before. Doesn't matter if we can execute better with the people by using these influencers and these new tools and these new means, and forgetting the legacy media and stop trying to suck up to them, then we will win and we will grow. And that's what we need to do. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you for all the support of this show. It's been fun being with you every day. Today is our 50th episode, and you guys have been along for the ride. Thank you. I can't thank you enough for doing it. Please continue to subscribe and share. Have a great weekend. I will see you back here on Monday on The Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.